CSS styling has a major role to play when it comes to how your website looks like. And there's no website in the world that can look good without having the right CSS, which is why ReactJS actually has multiple ways on how you can include your CSS code, few of which we'll be discussing over here. Our focus will be using the style sheet. Then we will look at the inline style sheet. And lastly, we'll actually look at the modules that we can include. Let's now look at how we can use all the three methods. So first being the CSS style sheet. So to do that, we'll just first create a component. I'm actually going to show you all the three methods, component by components, means that we'll create the style sheet one, then there is an inline one, and finally the modular one. So we can actually start having some sort of an asset in by the end of the series. Okay, so let's start with this. Firstly, we import the import um, React. Okay, so we have React imported. Then let's start by creating component. I got okay. Oh, sorry, style uh, sheet. Then we have equals to. I'm using the arrow function over here. Just it's a good practice to actually start using them rather than actually using the functions. Normal way of how we actually create the JavaScript function. I mean, so let's just export this and okay, so that's being done. We need to return over here some sort of div. Let's call it CSS style sheet. So that is our first method. We import this actually at style sheet. Okay, that's there. I'm going to quickly style sheets, all good. Should appear over here. That's good. Now, obviously, we need to create a CSS file for it. So to do that, we'll go into components folder and I'll call this as, because it's a style sheet method, I'll just call it style sheet for now. And it'd be a CSS file, obviously. And we can have one class over here for large font, and just like we defined CSS, we're going to do it. So large font means maybe 25 pixels and could be green color as a class, and we can say over here color being green, right? So we have two classes defined. Now in the style sheet.js component, we're going to obviously import the style sheet. Way it be done is style sheet dot css. So that's a very simple way of doing it. And you're going to obviously, when you have the class names defined, which is this, the way to include them over here is in previously in HTML, we used to do like class name and define the class name over here. Over here, we're going to do it like class name. Remember, it's a camel case that you need to use over here. It works a little, I mean, it works a bit different from the normal way we used to actually do it. And we're going to actually have a large font. Let's see whether it applies. Okay, it is applying. Maybe we make it 100 pixels. Okay, what about 75? This looks good. Okay, now we may want to actually have more than one CSS classes. So that's the simplest way of doing it is by just having a space and then writing down the name. So that's about it on how actually you can include the style sheets. Then the second method is the inline styling. Let's just create another component and call it inline style.js. And this time we just go in and copy this to save time. and we'll remove everything that we don't need. Call it inline style, uh, right? And obviously this is good. CSS inline style. Okay, that's fine. We'll remove this. Okay, so this is done. Now we're going to go into app.js. We'll obviously include it over there, add it as a component. So it should be all good. It should appear over here. Oops, seems there's an error. Okay, don't worry much about them. We should actually solve them up. Inline style is there. I guess I didn't save it. Yep, that's the reason. And there's no obviously no styling to it. Now, uh, the way for the inline styling, there are multiple ways that you can actually do it. First being that, what about if we just add over here the style? So style, and open the curly braces, and then color being maybe red, and see whether this works. Okay, so that's how you can actually do the inline styling. While let's suppose there's another good way of actually applying them up. Another one is creating a sort of an object. We can call it constant heading, and then we will actually um, define the object. So the key value could be over here the font size, which is a property. But just remember that you're not going to write it in a simple CSS way. This is more over a camel case structure. You need to define the values as strings. So whether it's 75 pixel, whether it's color being maybe blue, so you will need to define them as um, if it was something like font size, it will become like this. If it's a single color, it will be defined like this. I mean the single string without any space, without any dash. Okay, so we have this. Now we need to actually include within our style. So the best way to do it is actually remove this inline style and include it over here, and you can see it's already applied. You can have as many properties as you want and it should function fine. Third method is your CSS modules. So let's just create a style module. Maybe we can call it CSS module class. That'd be easier. I'll just copy this for now, remove everything that I don't want. CSS module. Uh, okay, so that's fine. Then I'm going to actually have, we'll remove this CSS module style. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to save it. Done. Going to include it in the app. CSS module, and we'll create a component like this. It should appear over here. Okay, it's there. Now we need to actually include create a file called as module dot module css. So basically within the component I'm going to define it as module style, and then module.css. Now, within them, we can actually have our CSS like we were doing it before in the um, in the style sheet actually. So we'll go in back again, and then just we'll copy and paste them, large font and green color, right? And the CSS module, I'm going to start using them. So how we're going to use them? I'm going to import them as styles, and then we'll reference them. Okay, by the name. So it's a big name. So let's just copy it in fact, and then coming back to it. So that's there. Uh, Now I can reference because I can now use the class name and can reference them means by using the styles I mean, whatever the objects we had or whatever the properties we had. So we can just use them using style dot uh, large large font. I hope my spelling is correct over here. And let's see whether it functions or not. Oops, it's working. That's great. Now let's just go in and make it a little bold. Font weight, bold. Maybe you want to reference more than actually one class. Another one could be this one, the green color, or maybe we just change it to yellow color, right? And make it yellow. Okay, that's good. And now the way to include this is using backticks and then with the dollar sign. So I'll just show you around. A backtick is this one. So on both the side have the backticks, easy way out, and dollar sign, and then you open the curly braces and you close on the other side. You do the same for the other property. So it's going to be like a yellow color, and okay, so that's done. Now you should see it yellow.